how expense ratio works and how this will affect the returns. This is an interesting comparison because I'm just going to show you the facts, and I've already done a video on expense ratio. Is it really important? Please go and check. The link is coming at the top. And today's video will give you a picture whether you should focus on expense ratio or you should focus on returns, which is what we are going to invest, which is the reason why you are investing and I'm recommending. So, hi, hello, this is Ganesh Through, your stock market profit coach, author of the book One Page Mutual Fund Plan. Please check the description if you want to buy this book. And I'm a mutual fund distributor. I'm just going to show you the great picture. What is the difference between the expense ratio of direct and regular, as well as what is the major difference? Because lots of confusions. I have seen so many requests. I'm just going to be honest with you, like showing you the facts, and the decision is yours. Can you do all these things? Do it yourself. And if you find it difficult, because I see investing itself is difficult for many of the people, so get some knowledge, go over it, and invest properly. That is should be the only agenda. So let's go to today's topic. What is the expense ratio? Expense ratio is nothing but it is there for each and everything. If you take insurance, it is there. If you take real estate investments, there is a expense ratio, which means like charges whatever you pay for real estate investment, that is called as expense ratio in mutual funds. So it is there across all other asset classes, right? So be clear with that. Be clear with that point first, because expense ratio is people think that it's like something looting by the distributors. But the point here is that even for mutual fund companies, there are expense ratios irrespective of distributors in between, right? The what are the expenses? What are the expenses incurred by the mutual fund companies? For launching the fund, they need to have a discussions and everything, fund management charges, and on top of it, distribution. Even though distributors are not there, even you go for direct, there is a marketing advertisement which they do it in leading news dailies or whatever it is required. Marketing is required. Those expense charges and investing and taking the money out, those charges, everything will come under all these expense ratio. So the point is expense ratio exists for regular as well as direct mutual fund. Are you clear with that point? Right now, let's go into the difference between active and passive expense ratio, because that is usually called as active mutual fund, passive mutual fund, right? And active mutual fund is nothing but where the fund manager actively changes the composition of the mutual fund so that you get big returns. That is the point. Okay, active mutual fund is nothing but you invest in, say it's a small cap fund, you choose small cap stocks so that that fund is giving you extraordinary returns. Some of the top three mutual fund companies which does extraordinarily in small cap or Axis, SBI, and Nippon, and rest of the companies will also compete and it will go up and down. So the point here is that this is called as active mutual fund. So let's take passive mutual fund, which is nothing but you invest in a fund and the fund the composition doesn't change frequently, maybe once in a quarter, once in 6 months, very rarely once in a year. So the point is once in 3 months or 6 months the fund needs to be changed, because Nifty 50 or Sensex 30 changes the composition once in 6 months. Ideally it will happen like that. So this is how the passive mutual fund works. So generally in US in 70s 80s itself, the active mutual fund started deteriorating. That is the reason it gave birth for passive mutual fund, because these companies become extraordinary, so that there is no point in finding active mutual funds, because the returns expense ratio was so huge that people found it very good to invest in a passive fund. So they in US they invest in Nasdaq 100 or S&P 500, and those returns are way good. Vanguard was a person, John Bogle. He popularized passive mutual fund, and passive investing become norm in US. Do you know the returns what they get in US? Around 10 to 12%, not more than that. 10% itself the biggest returns in stock market in US. I mean through passive fund I'm saying. But when it comes to investing in India, the active mutual fund returns, do you know the returns? It goes up to 18-20%, and in certain cases, even during the bull rallies, it can even go up to 20 to 25%. And there are funds which goes up to that point, right? That is active mutual fund. If you go to passive mutual fund, if the fund is rallying, say for example Nifty is rallying right now, so Nifty 50 is giving you the last 1 year is more than 50%, last 1.5 2 years is going to be around 60-70%. But last since inception, say Nifty 50 is from 1995, Sensex is from 1986. Since that time, it has given around 14 to 15%. I'll show you the examples of this this passive fund. Okay, so this is nothing but Okay, now you got it clear. This is ICICI Prudential Nifty Index Fund. Just look at the expense ratio; it is very less. This is the only point. But what at the expense of what you're going to get this low expense ratio, 0.17%. Just look at the returns since inception, which is nothing but January 2013, which is around 14.59%, which is let's take 15%. Okay, and let's look at this another fund, HDFC Index Fund, Nifty 50 plan, right? And just look at same January 13, it's around 14.57. So annualized returns is around 15% in HDFC and ICICI. And just look at the expense ratio of this 0.2%. And this is direct for your information. Both these are direct funds, 0.2%. Okay. And now in the case of index fund, there is something called you need to understand something called tracking error. Why it is called tracking error? Because index fund you are just going to copy. That is the reason it's index fund. Top 50 fund in Nifty, you are going to invest in HDFC index fund. They are going to copy. But the point is every 6 months they are changing, and the cost involved in putting and taking that fund, there is a cost involved, and the returns may differ, right? And because the Nifty 50, they are just going to change. It's an index, but as a fund you may invest after few days or few weeks based on the amount what you have, and based on that the returns may vary, and that will bring in a tracking error percentage. And ideally it moves between 0.1% to 0.8 or 1% max. I had analyzed, I referred ET Money and other few funds where the error was around. Axis Index Fund was around 1%. In the case of HDFC Index Fund, what I recently showed you, it was around 0.4%. Nifty is having around 0.34, ICC is having around 0.31%. So ideally, let's take 0.4%. 0.4 plus 0.2% of HDFC Index Fund expense ratio generally comes around 0.5 to 0.6. So right, 0.6%, right? Let's look at the active mutual fund direct expense ratio, right? I'm just going to show you another important point. So hope you got the idea of tracking error which exists in index fund particularly, because people think expense ratio is the only point. My expense ratio is around, should be around 0.1%, 0.2%. Don't stick to that point, because on top of it you have tracking error which needs to be combined for in the case of index funds. Whatever be the index, you need to do that. And where you can find this tracking error, check in the website of ICICI or HDFC or Axis or whatever. They'll share you with you the tracking error. Do analyze everything. On top of it, you will get this tracking error, and it will be in the range of 0.2% to 0.6%. Add it with the expense ratio. This will be the total expense ratio, because tracking error nobody is showing. These funds are showing only the expense ratio alone. Tracking error will come only when you exit. At that time they will show you. So ideally 0.5% to 1%, it will be in that range. For any fund, this will be the total expense ratio of index fund. Okay. So once you take this tracking error along with that, so you know how much the returns are going to be, right? Let me show you the direct funds of some popular mutual funds. Okay. Now I'm just going to show you direct fund, Kotak Flexi Cap Fund direct fund. Okay, just look at the returns. And there has been a recategorization in the last 4 to 5 years since January 13. Just look at the returns, 18.33%. And this is a direct fund, you're going to get 18.3, whereas in the case of index fund, you just got around 15%, 3% difference. In the long run of say 10 years or 15 years, this is going to make a huge difference. And Sensex for the last 30-40 years has given around 14 to 15, whereas Flexi Cap or any sort of small cap or sectoral funds are given you more than 20%, right? So let's look at, and this is an interesting point. The expense ratio is 0.66%. There is no tracking error in case of Flexi Cap, because this is a active mutual fund. So fund manager changes frequently, and everything comes under this expense ratio. Let's look at one more thing. SBI Focus Equity Fund. This is one more category. Just look at the expense ratio, 0.71%, and the category average is less than a percentage. So in total, the expense ratio is going to be between 0.6 to 0.71 percentage. And on top of it, if the total asset value of the mutual fund, say this SBI Focus Equity Fund has around 20,000 crores, and if it crosses 20,000, 30,000 and 40,000, the expense ratio is going to come down even lesser, right? This is a big difference when it comes to expense ratio. And top of it, you're going to see this you are getting around 18% since inception, which is January 13. The money control is showing only from January 13. So for the last 8 years, 3% difference is going to be huge when you are going to calculate the returns. Okay, so did you get the point? Did you get the clarity of why this is very, very essential? Now, index funds ETF is active funds. Just look at the returns perspective. I just showed you the index funds is giving you around 14-15%, and now the market is high. Maybe you would have got even 17-20% returns in the last 2-3 years. But when you look at the 5 years perspective or 10 years perspective, 15 years, the returns will average it around 14-15%, because that's how the market works in the long run. When it comes to active mutual fund, the fund manager works actively in case of small cap, in case of flexi cap or multi cap or whatever different categories, you're going to get anywhere 2 to 3% minimum extra. And if you go to sectoral funds, it's going to be even better. So the point is, instead of taking large cap, you can go for index funds. That is the only thing. But do you want 15%? Because if you're focused on 4 to 5 years, maybe that is enough. You can go for index funds. But if you're focusing for 5 to 7 years or even more for long-term goals like retirement planning, your kids' education, for anything above 5 to 7 years, you can choose. So many other options are left over, right? So choose, understand what is that expense ratio, understand what is the tracking error in index funds, and then should you need passive fund or should you need active fund, do all these analysis, go to the websites of all these companies, do the analysis, track it over with money control and everything. You will get a bigger clarity, right? So you need to know all these points before you choose the best mutual fund. So now, how to choose the best mutual fund? So if you are somebody, there are two options. There are intermediaries like me, mutual fund distributors, where we can help you with investing in a best mutual fund, right? We can provide incidental advice on your where to invest and how to invest, all these things. For that, we are going to get a commission, which is going to be between, as I told you, SBA focused equity fund. The expense ratio is 0.71%. If you are going for regular, through us, we are recommending this fund, means suppose that the difference is the additional 0.5% or maximum 0.6% is going to be the extra. Instead of 0.71, the expense ratio of the fund may be around 1.25% max, not more than that, or 1.2% or 1.1. Need to check that ratio. So ideally, the extra commission is 0.5 to 0.75% maximum, and it has been brought down drastically in most of the funds, right? But what returns you are going to get? Around 17-18%. And if you have been recommended that sectoral or whatever funds, the extra returns is going to be 18 to 20%, which is going to be more beneficial to you. Or another option is go to a registered investment advisor, where they can give you a suggestion on all these better funds. For that, you are going to pay a fees on a yearly basis, because every year if you need to review, you can check with them. This is an option. So the point is, either you can come to a distributor, pay the commission and get it done, or approach a investment advisor, pay a fees. The point is, either you are going to pay a fees or either you're going to pay it as a commission, which is going to be minor, small. And this expense ratio is there in all asset classes, inclusive of mutual funds. Understand this point, right? And you have so many works to do in your professional life, in your business life, whatever it is. And this, when a mutual fund distributor is recommending the best one, paying a mutual commission is nothing like, not is something like he's earning an income, right? As a doctor, as a professional. And even the recent mutual fund ads which you're coming seeing on the Amphi, which is saying that mutual fund sahi hai. You would have seen ads about Sachin Tendulkar giving, saying that you need expert. Who is that expert? It can be a mutual fund distributor or a registered investment advisor. So they need to be paid, right? Because we undertake all these pain points of analyzing the funds, making sure this is good for you, and providing you with the proper solutions whenever you want to redeem or should you postpone, or all these decisions. That is the reason we are getting paid. And this is something like, which is, you are working something and you're getting paid. So understand the difference, understand what are the points available. That is the reason this video is shared with you. So if you want to know more, please share your comments. If you have any questions, please share it in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. And if you have a friend who is just confused about active, passive, expense ratio and all these points, but not investing in mutual fund, please do share this video with them and let them get a clarity on investing in mutual fund should be the sole point in your life. And the rest of these things are small fees which you're going to give. and it is not going to come out of your pocket. What you're going to get is around 18 to 20 in the long run. If you are going for active mutual fund, choose the best one. That is a clarity you need to have in your life, right? Thank you so much for watching. Please share this video with your friends. Please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.